So somebody in the comments when it's asking about Apogee and how they became as big as they got and their kind of their history. And my first exposure to Apogee is they had those little third of a rack space A to D and D to A converters. I forgot the model, but they were machined out of aluminum and they had an anodized aluminum, so they were like silver and then this purple, and they were really they looked like jewelry. But before those converters, they were doing converters for the Sony 3324s and the Mitsubishi digital machines because their converters in it were so harsh. And Apogee came out with a system to replace the converters in those digital machines to make them sound better. So right there, that's how they started the company doing those things. But I think even before that, there was something, the UV22 uh, filter they had come up with. And the company was founded in 1985. Betty Bennett, who was married to Bob Clearmountain now, Bruce Jackson, and Christoph Heidelberger. And I know Benny Bennett is still involved with the company, and Bob Clearmountain's involved with the company. So, with that connection right there, a lot of referrals could happen. But things didn't really. I feel they were doing those converters and for those multi-track machines and probably making a good amount of money, but there had to be a limit to how much they could make with that. But I think their big break came when they had got the code to make a digital audio interface for Pro Tools, and this is during the 888 interface days. And this was before DigiDesign decided that they were not going to release that code. And everybody who made an audio interface after that had to reverse engineer and didn't have DigiDesign's approval. So they were the first company to work with DigiDesign to make an audio interface. They didn't release it through DigiDesign, but that became the 88,000. And that, to me, is when things took off for Apogee. Because when you put that 88,000, it was an 8-channel A to D and D to A converter, and it had these little slots on the back, so you could have it for ADAT or TDIF or AES EBU, whatever your digital format was. But the other cool thing they had is the card to plug it directly into a Pro Tools system. And that's where things took off. And they came out with that in 98. And I used to sell them. I'm not exact, I'd have 10, 20 come in at a time and sell them off. And I think they were around $6,000 to $8,000 per interface. So, if you wanted 24 channels, you had to buy 3 of them. And there was a studio in Pittsburgh, Manchester Craftsman Guild. They had DA88s, but they wanted better front end and back end to them for converters. So they bought the 3 Apogee 88,000s, and they were really cool. 2 rack spaces. They were purple, but the metering on them was really interesting. But I think that's where the money start really coming in for Apogee. And I was doing so much business, a great relationship with them. Betty knew me, everybody knew me there, and we were doing really good. Then after that, they came out with I think it was the AD16 and the DA16. So AD, analog to digital, 16 channels, and digital to analog, 16 channels. And then they had a 2-channel version of that. And then they came out with the Big Ben, which was their clocking system. So these were all like 1 rack space units. So if you wanted 16 channels A to D and 16 channels D to A, you'd buy both of them. So kind of once they stopped making the 88,000s, it kind of things stopped. And I think it was at that point, DigiDesign got into the HD card. So they weren't releasing the code. Apogee had to figure out how to make this thing work. And I was just waiting for them to come out with a new high-end interface. And they eventually came out with a Symphony. But by the time they came out with a Symphony, a lot of other interfaces were out on the market. And Apogee at that point, I think I said this in another video, hired a new national sales manager. and did not want me to be a dealer. He said I wasn't supporting the line when they weren't selling, 88,000s, and decided to just cut me off. And I said, oh, fine. Uh, it was, their loss, because about a year later they were begging me to take on the line, and I just said no, I don't want it anymore. But you were asking, how did Apogee get so big? And that was, to me, the 88,000s, they were all over the place. And after that, they were making so much money. And I remember even being at a NAMM show, and I think was I talking to Betty, or I was talking to one of their guys, and they were talking about coming out with kind of like a UAD that the Universal Audio has. So it's an external processing unit for plugins. And they were asking me what did I think about that, because I sold so many Pro Tools. I said it's a fantastic idea. You should do it. But they never developed it. I don't know what the problem was, but that never happened. So, uh, so that's kind of answers the question of how they got as big as they are. And now they make other interfaces and cheap interfaces, and Bob Clearmountain, with him being involved. Like I put that big Pro Tools rig together for Bon Jovi, and Bob Clearmountain was going to mix a song, and he told them that buy some, I think it was 88,000s, and I'll give you a good deal. But 192s were out, and they sounded okay at that time. There was not a huge difference between the 88,000s and the 192s, and I don't even know if that was what they were doing. But it's so there you go. I hope that answers your question about how Apogee got as big as they got.